I saw this tweet a few weeks ago, and I think it says something quite fascinating about the structure of economic value. When someone allegedly makes $80,000 in one night on Polymarket, it's so easy to chop it up to gambling. When you actually look at the details, there's no luck involved in the traditional sense. What you have instead is publicly available information like pizza delivery patterns near the Pentagon and simple reasoning. They made an inference based on observable patterns. The Pentagon pizza phenomenon isn't anything new. It goes all the way back to the 90s. The logic is pretty straightforward as well. Pentagon staff only work late when something significant is happening, and so they order pizza. And those large pizza orders strain local capacity, which then shows up on Google's traffic data. In 1990, this was genuinely insider knowledge. You had to physically be near the pizzeria or the Pentagon to notice. But now anyone with an internet connection can access the exact same data from anywhere. We've moved from a world where economic advantage comes from having information to one where it comes from using information well. What separates the person who makes $80,000 from everyone else isn't access to information. It's the capacity to reason critically and act quickly on what's already there and available to everyone else. But then you need to consider, if this is true on an individual level, what does that mean institutionally? Economies have historically been built on scarcity of knowledge, of skill, and of capital. So if data is not scarce anymore and its baseline capability is increasingly commodified through AI, what becomes the foundation? I don't know that I have the complete answer, but it seems like we're shifting towards something like speed and adaptability, but most importantly, the ability to discern which data matters, how to interpret that data, and when to act on it. But if we accept that the Pentagon pizza trader successfully turned publicly available data into $80,000, we need to acknowledge that this only works if that data is trustworthy. Those pizza delivery patterns only work because we assume that they're real orders from real Pentagon staff and not AI-generated misinformation. The same tools that let anyone analyze data also let anyone fabricate it. And as we've seen recently, you can very easily generate fake social media content. So what more logistics data? We've already seen financial markets move on AI-generated news and had real economic consequences because of it. And it creates a really fascinating paradox. More data is available now than ever before, but the accuracy ratio is collapsing. And unfortunately, the skills required to navigate this aren't evenly distributed. How easily can you spot a deepfake? Because these are now essential economic skills. We've democratized access to data while simultaneously recreating informational advantage through verification capability. And if we zoom out to the macroeconomic implications, capitalism is fundamentally structured around scarcity. Scarcity creates value. Value creates price signals, and price signals allocate resources. So if information is abundant and skills are increasingly commodified through AI, what remains scarce? In an economy drowning in information, the ability to identify relevance is perhaps the most important resource. This is why we're seeing the rise of curation as an economic activity. Data is being filtered and contextualized. So if data accuracy is no longer guaranteed, then trust mechanisms become extraordinarily valuable. This is why we're seeing economic energy flow towards verification systems. I would probably predict that institutions that can credibly certify realness will command enormous economic power because they're providing the foundation that lets other economic activity function. We're essentially rebuilding the institutional trust that traditional mediums like newspapers used to provide. The economy has always had information asymmetries, but the asymmetries assumed a shared ground truth that some people had better access to. What happens when there's no longer a stable ground truth to access, just competing realities? I think we'll probably be seeing increased economic gain to institutions that can enforce reality. Governments gain power because they have legal monopoly on defining certain truths like property records or identity. Platforms gain power because they control the infrastructure which information flows through and can impose verification requirements, just like we've seen recently. And so, in other words, the economy isn't becoming less scarce. I guess it's more restructuring what is scarce. We're moving from an economy where information scarcity created value to one where information certainty creates value.